Hey team, welcome to another episode. My name is Blake and this is Merve.
Hello.
And happy Halloween. It's our first annual Halloween special.
Once a year, on a dark night, we return. We will not sleep. We will not die. This is Halloween.
And I say first annual because I'm assuming there will probably be a second annual Halloween special.
I mean, I feel like as long as Halloween happens again, we will have another episode around that time.
I don't know, but I sweat Halloween as an adult. It's probably one of my favorite holidays, if not my favorite. I love handing out candy.
I trick-or-treated so long in my life that one year I went as Jesus with a fake beard over my real beard. I was like 23.
That's awesome. This year we're going all in though. We ordered full-size candy bars.
Gonna be that house.
Oh, I so want to be that house. I want to be the house that the kids are running around telling all their little friends, they got full-size down at that house. Today we're going to talk about a scary anime. And I guess I say scary in quotes. But we're going to be talking about Biohunter is the movie we're going to be talking about today. Biohunter. So, are you ready to rate Biohunter, Merve?
Will you recommend this to us? First comes Rock, John Ken Pon.
Yes. Why do you keep saying it like that? Is there...
Okay. Just for fun.
Okay, good.
First comes Rock, Jang Ken Han.
I gave that a 4.
Nice. I gave it a 2. So we have a discussion, which is excellent. And I'll put up the thing that says what our reviews mean. But for anyone who's coming across this as your first animation video, we use a Likert scale to rate things, and we rate at the beginning so as not to influence each other's rating. 5 means we are highly likely to recommend this to friends, family, and subscribers. 1 means we are not likely to recommend this to friends, family, and subscribers.
Yeah, that 4 comes with a bit of a caveat because there's some rough stuff in here if you're not into transformation. I know people have some problems with. There's some other bad stuff, nudity.
But another thing is we'll never give a 3. So we've committed to not taking the easy way out and going, it was average.
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, we've committed to making a decision. Will we recommend or will we not? And for Biohunter, today Merve is saying he would recommend it.
Yeah, I would.
And I'm saying I'm not real likely to recommend it. There's like one case scenario where I'll recommend it, and I'll talk about that later. So Matt McKenzie does the voice of Komeda, and Matt McKenzie also did the voice for Borgov in Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust.
Which one is Borgov?
He's the one who tells the joke about the squirrel.
Oh, okay.
Gotta tell you one about the owl and the squirrel. Squirrel works real hard, storing away nuts for the winter. You know, that whole thing.
Yeah, and then he gets eaten by an owl. It's a hilarious joke.
It's super funny. And the director also directed that movie and Ninja Scroll.
Oh, I've actually heard of Ninja Scroll.
Yeah. So here in my own words is what Biohunter is about.
It is necessary to set the record straight regarding our tale. You must study this series of events. You may find more. You may not.
So it starts off with 2 consenting adults doing adult things until the girl starts talking about being hungry, turns into a monster, and starts eating the guy. Then we flash to Kameda and Kosegaya, who are scientists. And they are scientists in the same way that Indiana Jones is an archaeologist. Meaning they are scientists in name, but they actually go out on adventures. And they're even professors, just like Indiana Jones.
And they flirt with their students. Even the front row student has the hots for teacher there.
Yes, absolutely.
She doesn't have anything written on her eyelids, but...
No. What was it on the eyelids in that?
I think just I love you. It's been a little bit.
The twist is that Kamada has the same virus that caused the girl at the beginning to turn into a monster. We now know that this means they're actually demons because it's a demon virus. But because he's a main character, Kamada can control his demon side and use it for good. Until the story needs him to not be able to control it for good, and then he can't control it. Well, sort of, but mostly he can control it pretty much all the time. Then they meet this girl who is looking for a fortune teller, and the fortune teller is her grandfather, and this fortune teller uses waterfalls to cleanse himself of the bad fortunes he's told people, and he's also running from a gangster boss who he told a fortune to. We don't really know. If I remember, I don't think at the beginning we know why he's running from the gangster.
We do not. We don't know why the thugs appear at all, yeah. It's a gangster politician.
Gangster politician, yeah.
Which is a little redundant.
Yes, yes it is. Same thing. It's like saying...
it's like saying a large giant.
Car sedan.
A large giant stepped out of the woods.
Yep. I drove my car sedan to the store, right? And he's also, anyway, he's running from the redundant politician gangster, who we also find out has this demon virus as well. So then there's this girl, Sayaka, and the two scientist adventurers team up with her, and they're trying to find the fortune teller before the gangster politician does. And then they all converge kind of on the same place by a waterfall. There's some action. The fortune teller dies anyway, which I thought was kind of random. Like, all this was to find the fortune teller grandpa, and then he just gets like wrecked. But they do end up beating the gangster politician. Then we hope that Kamada and Sakaya get to be together as boyfriend-girlfriend, but because Kamada has permanently merged with his demon self, he says he's not human anymore, and he walks off into the sunset. The end. So, based on all of that, and the story so far from a writer's perspective, Merve, how did they do with our Halloween special #1 movie of the week?
Well, of the year.
Crypt Keeper story of the month
Year.
for Halloween.
Happens every year.
Yep.
Well, Halloween.
Crypt Keeper, though,
Tales from the Crypt.
is once a week.
Well, it was originally an EC comic, which was great, till the Comics Code Authority made them illegal.
So the comics what?
The Comics Code Authority, yeah.
That's a thing? Like, Crypt Keeper was made illegal?
Well, not illegal, but a Comics Code Authority was created by Marvel and DC to kind of push out EC Comics, which was popular. And it had ridiculous things like, you can't say crypt in the title. So it's obviously like, you can't say horror in the title. You can't use undead. Stuff like that. Which is why, and there's a movie coming out soon, Marvel has a character called Mobius the Living Vampire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's super. I did not know that about Tales from the Crypt. I feel bad. I did like that show.
Yeah. EC Comics are great. They're great. Bernie Wrightson did a lot of the art. Great stuff. But anyway, from a writer's point of view.
Meaning your point of view.
My point of view.
Regale us with your wit, storyteller.
The thing that I think they did very well in this, I'd love to talk about a great choice at the end, but I cannot. So the thing that I thought they did really well in this is there are things called traits and tags that writers can do. And you can do this in prose and you can do it in a visual medium. And this is obviously a visual medium. So that they are things that you add to a character. So the audience, the viewer, the reader doesn't have to do a lot of work to remember who that character is every time they step on screen or step on stage, as you would say in prose. For example, we have Komada has a ponytail. And so we see that ponytail and we know it's him. Koshigaya has a little mustache, a little mustache. So whenever we see the mustache, we know it's him. If you're doing this in writing, Some of the famous ones are, if you've ever read Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time, Nynaeve, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that, but that's how I pronounce it, always is yanking on her braid. So it can be an action like that. It can be something that they hold, like Indiana Jones, who we talked about earlier, has his hat and a whip, which also lends to his silhouette. We can just see Indiana Jones' silhouette and we know it's him. We know who that character is. We don't have to do a lot of work. It can be a symbol. So, for example, we see the bat symbol and we know Batman's here. We know there's a Batman joint. If it's Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, these are all much more iconic. Green Lantern. So what you're doing is, and I talk about this a lot, the audience is lazy, and I don't mean this derogatory in any way. The audience doesn't want to do work, and they shouldn't have to do work. That's a ghost. 100% a ghost behind me. The audience doesn't want to have to do work, so you can do little things to make it easier for them. Have a thug with red spiky hair, so every time he shows up on screen, we know, hey, that's the same thug I saw earlier. We've watched a couple animes where I've had some trouble knowing, is that the character we saw earlier? Is it not? Or even what faction they belong to. It's very easy to just give them a different colored uniform than the other character, some bright color, which is also used in comic books a lot. And that's the way humans kind of catalog things. It gives us something visual. It can also be auditory, do, or every time, or a way a character speaks in prose that they say, this character says bloody every other word. We'll get to your uncle's bloody wedding. At first, the reader might go, wait, who is that character? And then they say something or do something or are described in a certain way or have a certain object. And we go, oh yeah, that guy, the guy with that gun that says Susie on the handle. We know who that character is. We remember them, and we don't have to do as much work. And that's one of the things that I was never confused at who the bad guys were, who the good guys were, who was coming for who, which character was which, except for the female characters. All kind of, they didn't do this as well with the female characters in terms of they were all kind of similar build with long black hair.
But a couple of things about that. So one, it's interesting you were talking about the tags, because on my diss track, those things stood out to me as well. And I have that the characters were kind of relegated to those tags. Like the one guy has a mustache, the other guy has a ponytail, the one thug, who I'll talk about later, is my favorite character in this whole thing, had spiky red hair. But now that you've talked about it, it's kind of changed my mind, because it's something that, helped them stay in my memory as I watched it, versus it being their entire personality in the show.
But you can reel it off like that. That's the thing. Like you can say, oh, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy.
Right. So it did help in that way. So I think that's a really good thing to cover there. And the next thing is just kind of a question. So I feel like it could get a little bit long in the tooth to kind of open with that, especially if it's written down, like just to open with that constantly. So like, how often does that need to come up?
Yeah, it just depends on how often the character appears. If you're writing an Indiana Jones story, we don't need to say his hat and whip every time we see him, because we kind of get the picture of who Indiana Jones is. But if it's a character that only comes up once early and then maybe 3 or 4 chapters later, we just want to drop it in, if we can drop in a trait or tag. Or
I like the ones that are more personality traits, like you mentioned, saying bloody every sentence or whatever. There's an anime I would love to get to called the English translation anyway is called Full Dive. This Full Dive MMO RPG is shittier than real life. Like legitimately, that's the title. And just the title of that anime, I'm like, I'm in. I don't even care if it's the worst anime ever.
Yeah.
And it's not the worst anime ever. We'll get to it. But the reason I bring this up is because there were a few episodes I had to watch subtitled. As we talk about often, I prefer the dub. Merv, sounds like you prefer the dub too.
Well, because most of the time you're looking at sweet art.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like focus down and have to read when I'm trying to watch sweet art.
To me, the direct way to say it is if I want to read a book, I'll read a book. If I want to watch a show, I'm watching a show, right? But anyway, I had to watch a few episodes in the subtitled version because the dub hadn't caught up to the story yet where I was, and I enjoyed it so much. I'm like, I gotta keep watching this story. But anyway, long story long, there's a character in that show, and she's like a torturer character.
Okay, like a dominatrix or something.
Yeah, very similar. She's got this laugh that's like chee hee hee.
こりゃ結構いい闇っぷりっすね。
Like chi chi chi, kind of like chi chi chi. I guess it sounds like chi chi chi. Anyway, it's very, very memorable. And just as you're talking, for some crazy reason, as you're talking about tags the second time, her laugh just kept popping into my head because every time she came on, within the first sentence or two, she's throwing out this like chi 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 laugh. And it did make me feel a little bit of FOMO on the subtitle thing because the dub, the actress who does the dub, does not have that tag.
Yeah, it's a very good tool for writers.
Yeah, definitely. So should we get into the diss track, and what is one thing you have on your diss track list?
I see you have made your decision. Now let's see you enforce it.
The story stops for exposition a lot. And I understand this is like a short version of a longer piece, I suppose. And so you have to get information to the audience. But there's like times when we get exposition where two characters know, like Koshigawa and Kamada are like, well, we both know we're professors. Yes, we are professors. Also, we hunt demons. Yes, we do. And it's like they both know it. No one would have this kind of conversation. And we'll get like a little bit from the grandfather. Oh, I did a reading on a gangster politician, and I told him he was going to die soon. Oh, interesting. And we stop there. Story moves forward a little bit, and then he's like, also, this gangster politician is a demon who's also the serial killer. And it's like, well, but you just told me. Why didn't you just tell me the whole thing in one moment instead of little bits here and there? So just slow down the story every time it happened. And I have like written here, exposition. Here's an exposition part. We get some more exposition. Meet the grandfather. Exposition.
I have one of those on my list too, is Koshigawa is doing like an interview of one of the girls or something. I don't remember the exact specifics, but he turns to her and he's like, so what you're telling me is...
Okay, let me get this straight.
And then a big long list of things that she had said.
That she had presumably just said.
But we didn't see that. That was off camera. So it's like a detective show where we came in to the conversation too late. And it's funny because we talk a lot of times about how, look, this is animation that you're drawing and writing. You can do whatever you want. Like, you don't have to.
Yeah, no budget.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be an exposition dump. You could literally, I don't know, show us that conversation instead of saying, well, what you mean is this, right? How about we just see that?
I forget, did the woman have any lines? Maybe they just didn't have a voice actress for that. And so they just had him say, let me get this straight. So then they didn't have to pay another actor to do her voice.
I think it was the girl at the beginning that they dealt. I don't know, man. The girl, we talked about this already, and this is certainly a diss for me. They didn't do the girls justice in this one. Like, there's no nice way to say it.
No, that's for sure. That's fair.
They just didn't, and they all kind of blend together to the point where, in my mind, there's only two girls in this movie. One is the girl at the beginning who turns into demon boobs, and two is Sokia.
Sayaka. Yeah. Well, there's also the architect woman. But yeah, especially Sayaka, And I have it SAY apostrophe hyphen A hyphen KA. Sayaka is how I did it phonetically.
I have Sayaka, Sayaka.
Oh, Sayaka, I've been waiting for you.
Sayaka. Yeah, whatever. We're both wrong.
Probably.
She should have had something. She should have had a locket that she played with. She should have had a special hairstyle that she used, a scar. She could have had something that would have set her apart as being, because she's one of the main characters. She really could have had something there.
And it's not, I could see a lot of people thinking or feeling, well, that's just the anime way. All the girls are damsels in distress that are just personalityless and, blah. Nothing could be further from the truth. Like, nothing could be further from the truth. In anime, I have found, without a doubt, 100%, there is zero difference in like agency, personality, whatever buzzword you want to use. There's no difference between the two. And there's an even...
I haven't noticed it in the stuff we watch. There's plenty of, we could almost say the same thing about Kamada. It's like he has a ponytail, but that's it. Otherwise, he's just a very stoic, kind of boring character, except for his sweet inner turmoil.
I think that long part was my diss. What other diss do you have?
I wish it was scarier.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, this is like, we searched and searched for a Halloween scary anime and did the like 30 scariest of all time anime, 10 scariest of all time. Don't watch these animes in the dark. And this was on all of them. But it's not not that scary. There's a lot of things, like there's no real atmosphere. Vampire Hunter D, which we don't usually look back on, but we are, because this is the same guy, right? We've discovered.
Yep. Same creator. Yep.
Had tons of atmosphere. But this is like a demon. They're hunting demons and everything happens like at noon.
Right.
It's like bright daylight. It's like sunny and they're fighting demons and having action sequences. It's not, things should be happening at midnight and it should be darker. There could be much, much more tense moments.
All the adults use full lighting when they do adult things, like as bright as it is in this room. This is what
that opening felt like it could have been dark and scary and dirty. Instead, like real coitus. Instead, it was like porno right. Coitus, and so it was like all brightly lit and not scary.
No, and here's where I would like to reach out to anyone out there who is listening to this or watches this. Please, because like Merve said, we spent a lot of time after recording our last episode trying to decide on what the first annual Halloween episode was going to be on, and we wanted it to be something scary. And frankly, when we came across Biohunter, I noticed the imagery of the demon and stuff, and I was like, oh man, this one looks like it's going to be a horror show, like super scary. And I know Japan does great horror, right? Ringu, The Ring, is stolen by us.
Their live action horror is great.
Yeah, so it's not, there's got to be some out there. Like I look up the list of top horror anime and Tokyo Ghoul comes up, and it's a fine anime. I'm not dissing Tokyo Ghoul at all, but it's more of a teen angst, Twilighty types, not as bad as Twilight.
Okay, good.
But like a Twilighty type story about teen angst and emo emotions and stuff with a little bit of ghoul things, but it's not scary. So please tell us either if you can make a comment in whatever platform you're watching this on, or Merve, where can they email us?
animationshow@gmail.com.
Animationshow@gmail. Gmail is another show.
Yes.
Or better yet, there's probably a Discord link in the description of whatever this is. So you could tell us on Discord, but please, if anybody, Bob, anyone who watches this, we would love to do like a for real scary anime discussion. We just need to know what the for real scary, because Vampire Hunter D is great too, but that is one that pops up as well, and it was not scary. So I don't know, man. There's got to be one out there, and I really, really want to find it because I love scary stuff. So I think that was a great diss. Yep. And then, did you want to talk about monsters while we're here? I think we could segue into that.
Oh no, I'll talk about it when we talk about Kamada, because it was like about him, the monster within. We'll do it there.
If there's a part where we get into where you can find a better opening, just take it. Who was last? Oh, you were not scary at all. Okay. All right. So here's one of my disses, and it is a issue, and we've talked about this a few times, where there's a coincidence that happens for no other reason other than the story needs the coincidence to happen. So the grandfather fortune teller uses waterfalls to cleanse himself of the bad fortunes he's had to give people.
Which, in fairness, is cool. That's a cool little
plot point. No problem. Yeah, no problem with that lore point. And they're trying to find him. So they're driving down the road, and they even talk about it like 5 minutes before. They're like, "What waterfall?" And Sokia's like, "I have no idea what waterfall." And Kamada's like, "There's a lot of waterfalls. We could be chasing waterfalls for years, and we should just stick to the rivers and the lakes that we're used to," or whatever. He doesn't say that, but he could have.
For sure. He doesn't, he should.
And then all of a sudden, red-haired spiky guy comes up, and there's a firefight. There's a firefight. I remember that part from Boondock Saints. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay, I don't remember. It's probably a great part.
It's a deep cut.
Probably the best part of Boondock Saints.
He's talking about, like, he's going through the crime scene, and he's talking about what just happened. And he's like, "Yeah, this happened and this happened." And he's like, "And then there was a firefight."
There was a firefight!
Anyway, the way he says it is dope.
Okay, sounds great.
I'll probably cut all that.
Sounds funny.
So anyway, there's a firefight, and the car goes off a cliff that Kamada and Sokia and Koshigaya are in. And Kamada turns into demon form. He unleashes the monster from within and saves the day. And they land safely, and they wake up and they look up, and there happens to be a waterfall, and there happens to be a little temple next to the waterfall. And it just so happens that one that the red-haired spiky thug inadvertently blasted them into seeing is the very waterfall where the grandfather is. And I just felt like that was a very coincidence.
Yeah, they could have played it off as a joke.
Yeah.
But they really didn't. It just
could have been way funnier if they would have been like, "Oh, well."
The caveat there is coincidences can get your character into trouble.
Yeah.
I walked into this store, and also the bad guy that was looking for me also walked into this store. And then that's tension, and it's a coincidence that gets your character in trouble, but it shouldn't get your characters out of trouble, or as is the case here, help them accomplish a goal that they are trying to accomplish. It's unsatisfying.
This coincidence, they like set up the joke by him saying there's a ton of waterfalls everywhere. They could have fallen and been like, "Oh, there's a waterfall." I don't know, something, right?
Yeah. What are the chances that that's the right waterfall? What are the chances that that's the right old man sitting there fishing?
Yeah, in no way. And then Grandpa stands up and waves or whatever at everybody. Yeah, it could have been sweet. So that's a diss I had.
My last diss is the aforementioned choice. This would have been a 5 for me if this had come to fruition, because they set it up. The only way to defeat a demon is to become a full demon, so Kamada will never be able to defeat that other demon because he's not a full demon. And then Kamada is kind of falling in love with Sayaka, and so we see that he has this attraction to her. We know that they're after another demon, and this demon is after Sayaka. And so it'd be really nice to have a moment where the gangster politician is transformed into tentacle monster, and he has Sayaka and all wrapped up, and he's tendriling her mouth, whatever. She's in a lot of danger. Komada looks at her, and Koshigaya says, no, Komeda, if you transform one more time, you will become fully demon and there will be nothing we can do. And then there's a big choice moment where he's like, well, if I transform, I will lose all my humanity. But what good is my humanity if I can't have the woman I love? This kind of choice. Either way, he knows he won't be able to be with her. But in one situation, she's alive. In one situation, he's alive. And then he makes this grand choice. But instead, what happens is red-haired thug beats on him until he turns into a demon. And that is the last time that he can turn into a demon. And then he didn't really make the choice. And like, this seriously would have been a 5 for me because I thought everything was being set up. And I know what a lot of people will say out there, like all 2 people watching will say, well, if you're expecting it, it's better if what you didn't expect to happen. But that's not how story works. It's satisfying if the character has to make a choice that you have foreshadowed so well that something feels inevitable. This feels inevitable that he is going to have to make this choice. When he doesn't have to make the choice, it's very unsatisfying because the choice is taken away from him. He's just beaten into the creature. Now, I still think the struggle is cool. Like, his inner turmoil is cool and that stuff. But you set up this choice and then we don't get to see it. And so it's a little unsatisfying there.
Well, and you were talking about traits and tags earlier, and his whole thing is that he can control himself turning into and out of the demon form or use the demon form. So, and then the one time it actually needs to matter that he changes or decides to change, he's forced to change. So that is a letdown. And the one thing I wasn't sure about is, so Koshigaya has that gun with that bullet in it, right? But I don't know if that was like a cure or if that was a demon killing potion. Like, not 100% sure what that was, but I was hoping that was going to be the big choice at the end. Like, Kamada gets demon formed and can't control himself, and he's about to kill Sokia, and Koshigaya needs to decide. Let's say it was a cure, right? And Kamada would live, but then the gangster boss is also a problem, so he's got to decide which of the 2 to use this on. Or let's say it's a demon killer, right? And Kamada's losing, and he needs to decide, do I kill my friend who's lost himself, or do I, let him kill the girl? Like, I thought it was going to be the bullet was going to be the choice, because like, why else only one bullet?
You could have set up something cool where Komeda kills the politician, and they even say the only way to kill a full demon is to go full demon. So we know when Kameda kills the politician, he has gone full demon. And we also know full demons are a problem. Ergo, we need to solve this problem of Komeda the demon. And then we have the gun. And then it's Koshigaya. I like how every time we say a name, we have to like peek at our notes.
Yeah.
Then it's Koshigaya who has to make the decision. Do I shoot my friend here? This is my best friend, but he's a full demon. If I let him live, he's a demon and I don't know what he'll do. If I kill him, I've killed my best friend, and we have a choice between something bad and something bad. And it's a great choice. Any of these things work better than red-haired thug guy beats on me until I turn into a demon.
Or even like a typical tension moment where the bullet is a cure, right? Kamada destroys the mobster politician, right? But is out of control. And then Koshigaya gets the gun knocked out of his hand, and it gets like flung across the room, but he's stuck under a rock or some shit. And then like Soki is like trying to crawl and get the gun, but she's all hurt. And there's this tense moment where, is he going to get the gun before Kamada kills them all, or what? Like, that would have been sweet too. I don't know.
The gun should have been better used. It should have been set up better and better used, because neither of us are 100% sure what it did. And then it wasn't even used, right? He shot the guy, but he still lived.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking of way better ideas, because I think the opportunities were so great. And just as we've been talking through this, I'm like, oh man.
They set up everything really well. Everything was set up really well.
Yeah.
That's more frustrating when things are, if something's just really bad, and then you're like, it was just bad. It's more frustrating when things are on the cusp of greatness.
My last one is the action scenes. And we've talked about this and run into this a few times, but and we already talked about like anime, you have full control. You're drawing the thing, and yet a lot of anime uses confusing action. Well, not a lot of anime, but some of the ones we've come across uses confusing action where it's like quick cuts. And especially that last fight scene, it was really hard to tell.
Extreme close-ups.
Yeah, like what was going on, what was happening. You've got such cool character designs, but you're making this scene really bad. So I think they could have done a better job drawing the action to make it more readable, because it's like with those claws and those fangs, you can't kill the little bunny. Like there's the bunny, it's right there, and you've got all these tools. Someone will get this reference. Merve, you won't.
Okay.
But someone will understand this reference. So you're like a bear, man. You got these claws and these fangs, and with these you can't kill the bunny. And they didn't kill the bunny. They drew action that was dizzying. So that's my last diss that I have. Would you like to?
I am all out of disses.
All right. So Merve, now let's talk about our favorite things about this anime movie. What are some of the things you liked the most?
Kamada's character. Now, even though he's just a stoic ponytail, I love the idea of the fighting the monster within, that struggle that he has. He doesn't want to find attraction to this woman that he's kind of falling in love with because he doesn't think has any value as a human, because he's actually a monster. He's not a human. So he doesn't let himself get close. And that's a trope I like, is that kind of monster within. We'll do a tangent here. We'll do a quick tangent because it's Halloween.
Yeah.
Let's talk about monsters. Let's talk about monsters for a little bit.
Sweet.
I will posit there are only 3 types of monsters that exist in all of movie and media.
And in real life.
And probably real life. I mean,
it's Halloween.
3 monsters. Vampires, werewolves, and Frankenstein. Those are werewolves, the monster within; vampires, the monster without; and Frankenstein, the monster you create. So here we have a werewolf, the monster within. These are, again, Jekyll and Hyde, the Incredible Hulk. We see this trope. Can't control it. It comes out and you become a monster. And that is a big fear. Vampires, a lot of alien invasions will be vampire movies. That is another force is coming to you and you have to fight it in some way. And then the last one that is in a lot of zombie movies, a lot of plague movies, it's the monster you create. You've created Frankenstein and now he is running amok. Jurassic Park is a great example of this. Jurassic Park is a Frankenstein monster in the house movie. So we have created these dinosaurs and now they are after us. Westworld is another one. Terminator. A lot of the AI movies are those Frankenstein monsters. And so I would posit that those are the only 3 monsters. A lot of that, I will say, too, I want to give credit to Stephen King. He has a nonfiction book called Dance Macabre that I believe he wrote in the 70s.
Yeah, that's good. So, but yeah, I love that example. And now everyone can run along this Halloween and sound smart in front of your friends and be like, I bet you I can put every monster that exists into just 3 categories.
You're holding up at the number 2.
3 categories. That was 100% intentional.
Okay, sure.
It wasn't, but it was.
Mm-hmm. We know.
I'm just going to let everyone wonder if it was or not.
Okay.
Only I know the truth of that whole thing.
That's
that
true.
Just happened.
You're a monster.
Which one, though?
Well, from my point of view, a vampire.
Yeah, that's fair. What were we talking about? Favorite things.
That I was talking about. It started with Kamada.
Yeah.
And I like his character. I like that choice because a werewolf is my favorite style of monster. I like that inner turmoil of not wanting to become the monster, but, having to.
Speaking of werewolf in London, One of my favorite things about this is the transformations. In fact, if you look up Biohunter on the Googles or the DuckDuckGos or the Bings, I think on the web crawlers for Deep Cut.
Internet Explorer.
Yeah. Web crawler was my jam back in high school. If you look it up on one of those, you're going to probably see the demons, or you might come across a quick video or a GIF of the transformations, because they're awesome.
That one where his like face melts into the...
Exactly that.
That's so good.
So the Creature Shop did their job and did it well, I think, in this movie film.
Yeah, those transformations are really good. The time bomb aspect, and you said in your about like Kamada has control and then doesn't have control and needs it when and there is that to an extent, but they do kind of explain it, because Koshigaya says your immune system is so good that it can defeat it, but it can't defeat it forever. So we get this like time bomb where we know that one of these times when Kamada transforms will be the last time, and he won't be able to control it anymore. And we get little glimpses of it here and there, especially when he's with Sayaka, like laying beside her after the car crash. He starts to kind of try to eat her or whatever as a demon.
And it adds those restraints, right? It adds that restraint. So it can't be the solution every time him just turn into monster form. He does have to try to use it sparingly, because who knows when it could be the last time. Yeah.
Right. You want to have limits on any of your powers, because it just becomes, and it almost becomes that in this, where you lose tension, because like, well, if something goes bad, he can just transform into a demon. And if we lose that tension, then we lose interest in the movie, show, book, whatever we're doing. But if you add those limitations, well, I know he can't keep doing this, and I know there's a risk involved, so now I'm tense every time he does it.
By far my favorite character in this whole show is the spiky red-haired thug. I don't know, I loved him, and I'll give you an example, and I think anyone who hasn't seen this will understand why, but red-haired spiky thug is totally rad. So that part where he's chasing them right before they crash and find the waterfall, and they're in a truck next to him, and he pulls out a machine gun and he looks over at him and very dangerously says, "I'm gonna send you to hell, and here's your ticket." Blah 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 blah. And it was sweet. In fact, I think he has a couple of sending them to hell jokes that just land. And for a movie where I struggled to remember it and kind of struggled with some of these other things, that exact quote was very memorable. That is not something I had to like re-look up before we did this recording. That stuck in my head because it was so awesome. So I had to put him. He doesn't even get a name, but I had to put him on my favorites list, because by far my favorite character in this.
I think we see this a lot in writing Eastern, Western, Northern side. It doesn't matter, where sometimes the side characters or the sidekicks or the comic relief characters, we often call them, become more interesting than the main characters, because authors, writers are afraid to take chances with the main characters, afraid to give them funny lines or overly verbose or obnoxious personalities, because they don't want people to not like that character. So they give all that stuff, they pump that stuff into the side characters, and then sometimes the side characters kind of steal scenes or even steal the show, because people end up liking that more because they've taken a chance on it.
In a world where we get villains, we'll get a main villain and then a large disposable army of villains that have no individual characteristics or personality at all. Like, that's what we get today. So this is one of the reasons why I love that we're doing this and watching so much anime, because there is that. In here in the United States, if this was made, they would be like random thug number 1, random criminal number 2. They would all wear the same outfit. But in this, you know, they made standout characters, like you said, and took some risks.
Well, another line, since you mentioned a line, I'm gonna say one of the jokes that I thought really landed was when they were talking. Kamado was talking to Koshigaya about dating his students, and he's about to go to a party, and Koshigaya dates his students, and so he's like, "Oh, are you going to a party for a particular student?" And Kamado says, "I don't date my students. I act professionally." And Koshigaya says, "I'm very professional when I date my students."
Yeah.
And it's just a funny line. It's like, it's sleazy, but it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked that aspect of Koshigaya to be turned up a little bit. And maybe you can't because you only have an hour. And they did. We saw the student flirting with him. He makes mention of it here.
He has a mustache, just a mustache.
And it's like a little thin mustache. But he's kind of pushing Kamada into like the relationship. Like, hey, check out Saika. You like her. She likes you. And that kind of stuff. So he has that, but it's not amped up enough. It doesn't have verisimilitude enough. Like, really push that over the edge.
Yeah, and he's like, and Kamada's like, I can't because I'm a beast.
Right. I'm a werewolf, one of the 3 types of monsters.
The last thing I wanted to talk about is kind of my rating a little bit. So I gave this a 2, and the reason is because a 1 would mean like I would never recommend it to anyone ever. And a 2 means there are instances where I could recommend this. And one of the things that I really liked about Biohunter, it took me a minute to think of the name.
It's hard to say because you want to say biohazard every time.
I want to say
Biohunter.
You want to know what's ridiculous and sticks in my head is like biodrone. I keep wanting to call it biodrone.
Biodrone, not even biodome, the Pauly Shore
No,
movie.
and I can see it on your face. Like, why are you thinking biodrone? Don't know. That's just what I think this movie's called, or should have been called, or that's what pops into my head. So why my brain does that? No clue, but biodrome. So that's why I have to be like bio. It's not drone or drome or none of that. It's Biohunter. So anyway, if someone were to come up to me and be like, hey, could you recommend for me, I want to get into anime, could you recommend for me one that just shows how far they will take the anime in a more mature direction, right? Because most people here are used to watching cartoons and they're for kids and all that. And then they hear about anime and they're like, it's cartoons, but it's for adults too, not just kids. And some people, I think that's why I got interested in it, if I'm honest with myself. Like, I heard there were cartoons for adults and I'm like, that sounds cool. I want to check it out.
And you were like 15. You're like, I'll check this out.
I want to see what happens in those cartoons for adults.
And you don't have to watch nearly 58 minutes of it to see how weird it can get.
No, you're right. It literally takes 2 minutes, no less, 30 seconds to see. Opening scene.
Before a boob is eating a hand. Yeah.
Yeah, like 2 seconds to get into that whole business. So yeah. Yep. So there are use case scenarios for me to recommend this, and I think that's a positive in the plus column for the movie film.
I think one of the reasons I went up to 4 is because it's short, and so you can just kind of like watch it and enjoy it quickly. You're not recommending something that's like, oh, check out this 7-year series that has 550 episodes.
It's pretty tough to not at least have to be in a 10 episode, 23 minute per episode arc to discuss something. So yeah, it's a good point. Good point. Do you have anything else you would like to say?
I have 2 more, and they kind of run together. So one, and we kind of talked about a little bit, the designs I think are sweet. Like the demon, Kamada's demon form looks sweet. The gangster president, gangster politician who's going to become prime minister if they don't stop him. He's fine. He's like a mouth with tendrils or whatever, tentacles.
Feed me, Seymour, feed me, is what I thought of.
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. But Kamada's looks sweet. It's multicolored. His eyes like look all over the place. They're super bloodshot.
And chameleon eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, they look in all different directions when he walks in the room. So I really like the designs, and some of the direction I thought was really cool. One of the scenes I really liked was there's a architect woman working late at night alone, and she hears a noise. She's like, oh, but then she sees nothing. So she pours herself some coffee and she goes to take a drink. And in the reflection of the coffee, she sees a demon on the ceiling above her, looks up, demon. And that's just a sweet shot. Like looking down, you see that kind of scare, because when you look at coffee, you don't expect to see a demon. I kind of do, because coffee is disgusting to me. It's like burnt water.
Yeah.
She looks at demon above, and adds a nice little flavor of bitterness.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and call an audible here. So normally we do our best, and frankly, I think we failed at this a couple of times in this episode, but we try to do our best not to call back to other things we've talked about, so that
in case people haven't watched it.
So our episodes can stand on their own. But I would like to call back to Vampire Hunter D, because it's the same director, creator, whatever. I'm sure you noticed, but the little monsters that kept popping out of people's arms and stuff were literally the same face as D's hand monster.
I did notice that, and I didn't know that they were the same creative team. But I did notice, I was like, oh, those look just like the demon. So I didn't know if that was a trope. It's interesting that they're the same creative team. There's probably some theory out there, like, oh, these must take place in the same world. Because isn't D's like way in the future? But isn't that it's a parasite, right? So a virus, a disease of some sort. Yeah, it could be this same virus that travels through, and just because D's a vampire, he's strong enough to control it to just his hand. It could even be Kamada's hand.
It could be that. That would be sweet. And when we get to Ninja Scroll, which we will, which is also by the same gentleman, it'd be interesting to see if we see any of those faces in that show as well.
I do know of Ninja Scroll because of my D&D ties, but that's about it. People have told me for years and years, people have tried to get me to watch various animes.
It is one of the earlier ones I watched, and I don't remember it real specifically, but I do remember liking it. I do remember enjoying it. So it's definitely one we'll want to get to. All the classics, all the deep cut classics that people have heard of for sure. Is there anything else you would like to tell anyone else about Biodrone?
Have you joined us yet? If not, then I'm sorry. I won't be sharing my dinner with you.
No, that is all I have on Biodrone.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching and or listening. You can find us on whatever platform you're on right now, and probably any other platform you would go to. You can probably find us. Just type in, animation or whatever. And then, Merve, you had a great place where they could kind of find where we're at.
You can go to our link tree, linktr.ee. That's Linktree. Most people probably know that. /animation.
Yeah. And then you can find all the places where you can find us.
Yep. Then we have a few links there that you can follow and email. You can email us there. You can tweeter us.
If you want to support us, you can like and subscribe.
We are very hip.
Or do all of that stuff. There's a Discord link somewhere probably.
On Linktree.
We got merch. Yep. Look us up on Teespring, now called Spring, formerly called Teespring. Everyone still uses Teespring. We're on there too. And that's all I've got. So thank you so much, everybody, and we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Give me what I'm looking for.
This is animation. Are you ready? It's over for you. You're done. But you'll be back.